Me. Her voice came from the back door of the house. I was confused, and then she appeared, looking pale and unsteady. What are you doing here? I was shocked because my mother-in-law had passed away and was cremated the day before. What's going on? She slowly signaled me, and I felt a cold sweat on my back. I was so scared my mouth went dry. Is this a dream? I shut my eyes tightly, terrified. My name is Eleanor. Before I met my husband Paul, who was 3 years older than me, I had a lonely life focused on work. When I got sick and went to the hospital, Paul was the doctor who treated me. After that, we kept running into each other in town and the supermarket, and we started talking. Our relationship quickly turned into marriage. Living with his parents was a surprise. His father, Dean, was the strict director of the hospital where Paul worked. His mother, Aria, was gentle and kind, and she welcomed me warmly. I thought, if Aria is here, I might manage. I became a housewife at Paul's request and wanted to do my best with Aria's help. I hope to have children soon. Paul was excited about becoming a father and kept saying so. After 2 years of marriage, we finally had a baby boy named Logan. Eleanor, thank you so much. Paul cried happily in the hospital room. But once we were home, he admired Logan from a distance and didn't help with childcare. Today is your day off, right? Could you feed Logan while I hang the laundry? That's your job. If I do childcare too, what's the point of you being here? Paul laughed and went back to watching TV. I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. Problems started when Logan cried at night. I can't sleep because of the noise. Make him stop crying. Paul yelled at me while snapping at the crying Logan. His loud voice only made Logan cry more. I took Logan to the living room to calm him down, but he wouldn't stop. Paul told us to leave. Don't come back until he quiets down. If I don't get enough sleep, it will affect my work. You're his mother, so handle it. I felt like he was talking about someone else and could only sigh. It was too much. While calming Logan at the park, Aria came to check on us. Are you okay? I'll take over, so you can rest. I'm sorry. Thank you, I said. Aria was the only one who understood me since Paul had pushed me away. With her help during those tough nights, I managed to get through, but things didn't get better. When Logan started eating solid food, Dean began to closely manage our finances. You've been spending too much. Aren't you living too freely on someone else's money? He scolded. With the added costs for Logan's clothes, diapers, and food, and Dean and Paul's dislike for simple meals, managing the money became hard. I had to cook a variety of dishes, which cost money, but we weren't living extravagantly. The household was strained because Dean and Paul often went out drinking, claiming it was for work. They refused to change their behavior and started giving us less money. Since you're only doing housework, we don't need to give you extra money, Dean said. Exactly. Even if your clothes are worn out, you can still wear them. You don't deserve any luxuries like we do, Paul laughed and agreed with his father. For them, drinking out was more important than supporting the family, and we were already struggling with very little money. If you cut back any more, I'll have to reduce Logan's meals, I said. Then stop eating yourself. Are you putting your own hunger before your child's? Dean replied coldly, leaving me speechless. Aria gently put her hand on my shoulder and spoke up. That's unfair. Eleanor works hard for the family, and it's natural since she stays at home. Is it really fair to expect her to be treated the same as us even though she doesn't earn money? Aria's words were met with a nod and a smirk from Paul. The kind expression Paul used to have was gone. Proud of being doctors, they looked down on housewives like me. Then I'll work, Aria said firmly. Eleanor is busy taking care of the baby, but I can work. Dean looked surprised by Aria's sudden decision. Times have changed. It's time to stop seeing women as servants. We have value too. You're quite bold. If you're so determined, I'll find you a good job, Dean said. He smiled at Paul and left the room. Once they were gone, I ran to Aria. I'm sorry. I should have stood up for myself sooner. It's okay. I've had enough too. I don't want to see you and Logan suffer anymore. Aria was truly amazing, and I promised myself I would become as strong as she was. Early the next morning, Paul woke me up and took me to Aria's room. What's going on? I asked. Something happened to Mom. Aria won't wake up, Paul said, looking confused and worried. I went to Aria's side, but Paul stopped me firmly. Dad and I will try to save her, so stay out of the way. Go take care of Logan. Even though his words were harsh, it was best to let the doctors handle it. I waited outside the room with Logan, feeling worried. After a while, Dean came out and told me Aria had passed away. Why did this happen so suddenly? I asked, noticing a bag of medicine by her bedside that she didn't usually take. It doesn't mix well with her usual medication. I always warned her to be careful. Dean's response left me stunned. Everything felt like a blur after that. Dean arranged for Aria to be cremated without a funeral, and even when I protested, Paul stopped me. Stop being selfish. Mom was old. Accidents like this aren't unusual, he said. Even so, not giving your mother a proper farewell, is that really okay with you? You misunderstand. You're also responsible for what happened to Mom. I was shocked by his harsh words. Why would you say that? You made her handle all the housework and childcare. That must have added to her stress. I was too stunned to do anything. Paul, unusually, took out the trash while I was in shock. Dean quickly handled the arrangements and I couldn't properly say goodbye to Aria. I wasn't even allowed to attend the cremation. Dean did it alone. From now on, you'll do all the housework. No more slacking off. Dean's cold words hurt my grieving heart. The day after the cremation, I was still feeling down. But Paul and Dean were cheerfully discussing going to the insurance company. Dad took out life insurance on Mom. We're going to check on it, so make sure you do the housework properly today. Once we know how much we'll get, let's have a big meal tonight. Ignoring their insensitive talk, I kept doing my chores alone. About an hour later, I heard a noise at the back door. Please help me. I heard Aria's voice. Even though she was supposed to be dead, I thought I might be imagining things. I went to check and found Aria standing there. What? How? I was so shocked I couldn't speak. Aria had been cremated the day before. Who was this? Chills ran down my spine as I wondered. Come here. Aria saw me and motioned for me to come closer. My legs were shaking, but I walked towards her slowly. Aria? She confirmed that Paul and the others weren't around and nodded. I have to tell you something. Please listen. The warmth of her hand gripping mine proved she was really alive. What she revealed next was horrifying. After hearing her story, I felt a deep, intense anger. Don't worry, I'll help too. This is unforgivable. Aria left to hide again, and as I watched her go, I vowed to get revenge on Paul and Dean. A few days later, the insurance agent was scheduled to come to our house, so my father-in-law and husband took the day off to wait at home. As I grew more annoyed by their cheerful behavior, my father-in-law approached me. You're still eating because of Aria's insurance money. Shouldn't you be more grateful? That's not true. I'm not happy about this at all. Women who rely only on others never appreciate money, he said with a derisive laugh, then plopped down on the sofa. Paul sat beside him smirking. Then the intercom rang. Oh, they're here. When they went to the door, they froze in shock. What? Why are you here? My husband, pale and trembling, pointed at the person in surprise. It wasn't the insurance agent but my mother-in-law. I came back because I had unfinished business. Next to her was a man in a suit with a lawyer's badge. That's impossible. I checked her pulse. It had stopped. Paul stammered, clearly flustered. It made sense now. She had been cremated and Paul had even collected her ashes. My mother-in-law then turned to Paul and my father-in-law and spoke quietly. You switched my regular medicine, didn't you? I noticed something was wrong right away. She began to tell the real story behind what happened. It was my father-in-law who had swapped her usual medicine with something else before she went to bed. I haven't forgotten how you laughed while I was suffering, she said. Stammering, my father-in-law tried to deny it. I don't know anything about that. It's all lies. As my mother-in-law pressed him, he backed away, overwhelmed. We had a cremation ceremony. Why are you here? Maybe God saved me that night. My heart did stop after your final check. I was taken to the funeral home, and miraculously, I woke up. You must have adjusted the dose so you could deny it if the police investigated. That's why I barely survived. Just before being cremated, I made noise inside the coffin and was found by the funeral home staff. Knowing you were behind it, I decided to hide temporarily. The funeral director, an old friend, helped me stage the ceremony. Thanks to their help, you were deceived. She showed them some documents. While hiding, I found out about a $100,000 life insurance policy taken out just months ago. I didn't know about it before. It was your policy with you as the beneficiary. Faced with this proof, my father-in-law was speechless and clicked his tongue in frustration. You didn't die as expected, making me look like a fraud. You've embarrassed me." Instead of feeling remorseful, he just blamed her. Unable to take it anymore, I spoke up. "That's not all. This is a crime. You tried to kill my mother-in-law. I won't forgive you." Then my husband, who had been trembling, moved behind me and glared at his father. I didn't want to do it, but Dad forced me. I'm a victim too." "What? You were involved in the insurance scam?" As my father-in-law moved towards Paul, I stepped closer to my mother-in-law. "If you hadn't wasted money on cabaret girls, we wouldn't be in this mess. You spent all our savings," I said. "You fool. You did the same, ordering expensive drinks and hanging out with young girls. You enjoyed it too." It turned into the most pathetic family argument I ever seen. As we stood there in disbelief, my father-in-law suddenly smirked. "Aria said I switched her medication, but there's no proof. The evidence would be long gone now, so you can't prove it." "Yeah, I threw the medicine packet out that morning, so it's gone," Paul said, thinking they had found a way out. But they didn't realize I had been waiting for this moment. We signaled the lawyer, who pulled out a plastic bag with the medicine packet. They recognized it immediately. "How is it here?" "I threw it out," Paul said. "Yes, but garbage isn't always collected right away," I explained. Paul, who never did housework, didn't know that trash collection schedules vary. He threw it out with the burnable trash. But that day was for recyclable trash, so our bag was left behind. I retrieved the packet the day after the cremation and gave it to the lawyer. Fingerprints from both of you were found on it, proving the switch. Hearing this, my father-in-law collapsed in shock. Paul, tearful, clung to my feet. "Listen, Dad's target was you, not Mom. And you're younger and do housework, right? I protected you because of the kids and all." Maybe he said this hoping for forgiveness, but I was furious. "So you tried to kill your own mother and expect me to be grateful? I'm your savior." Without saying more, I called the police. "Please don't. I needed the money because I was tricked by a woman. Dad did it too. We had to do this to protect the family." How could I sympathize with someone who tried to kill Aria over something so trivial? "I despise you." The police arrived shortly after, and the two were taken away. As the tension eased, we broke down in tears. Later, they were found guilty and sentenced to a long time in prison. Besides the insurance fraud, they had falsified medical reports for money, all to impress cabaret girls. It was pathetic. My mother-in-law and I claimed $30,000 each in damages, which they reluctantly paid. We used the money to move to a new place and start fresh with our son, Logan. We're focusing all our love on raising him to value family over money. How is this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.